Hello and welcome to another episode of UK Crossover, your UK-based Philadelphia 76ers podcast. As per usual, I am joined by Sam Oakley. Sam, hello. How you doing?
Not bad, Ben. How are you?
You say with a subdued tone. Yeah, I think I'm good. So just for listeners, before we came on, we were deliberating as to the tone of this podcast, and I think we're both sort of unsure about how we should traverse this one. Um, it's been a while, and again, the rationale behind that was we wanted to try and get a podcast done after we figured out what this Sixers roster would properly look like, get those final trades sorted potentially, get those final signings done. Because there's no point doing a podcast before we actually know who's starting where and who's really going to be filling out those minutes. But it has reached a point now where we're just going to have to bite the bullet and go because it wouldn't be a Sixers off season if it was had a few hiccups. Let's just say. So starting with the off season,
Mm.
incomings, nothing, no real headliners, as it were. A lot of periphery moves. Um, I guess the big incoming was Trendon Watford. Uh, is that the big incoming? Really? It is, isn't it?
I mean, that's how bad the situation is. I mean, he's the only young player that we've really gone for, younger player. Because obviously Gordon and Lowry are back as well, so we can't
Oh,
forget
get
those
onto them.
legendary players. I suppose they're the biggest names, but they're not the most sort of potentially the most sort of contributing factors.
well,
That's bad, isn't it?
well, Watford's our starting power forward. I think.
Yeah, well, unless we're going to play, barely 6 foot players there, and play positionless basketball or something, I think you're right.
Well, people were saying, maybe Paul George takes the four, but I don't think he's got the legs. He hasn't got the explosiveness. When you look at some of the fours he might have to go up against, with all the springiness and athleticism, I don't want him up against him. That will be the last thing he needs for those knees of his. Um, so it's looking like Watford, and it. I feel kind of bad for him because the signing in isolation seems like a solid enough one. But because there's nothing else complementing this signing, it is very underwhelming to the point where perhaps we aren't adequately rating the bloke. Now, I'm not going to sit and pretend that I watched loads of him when he was at Portland or Brooklyn, because no self-respecting basketball fan was watching an awful lot of Portland or Brooklyn, and Portland and Brooklyn fans would be the first to admit that. Um, but from what I've seen in the footage, he can move well with the ball, can play make well with the ball, decent play finisher, perhaps not the most reliable shooter in the world. But yeah, there's something to be had about that. He's got a very good relationship with Tyrese Maxey as well, which is really cool to see. They seem like really like best pals, which is going to be good for the locker room. Um, but yeah, Trendon Watford is our starting power forward. Based off of those attributes I've listed, there's there's something that he can offer, surely.
I mean, there must be. I mean, he's a cheap player, so you can't, you can't moan about the approach that the front office had of let's get in a young player. And they said they wanted to get younger. I know we're going to get onto the older chaps in a minute, and I'm not much off their age, so I'm not saying they're old. I'm just meaning in basketball terms. I get where they're going. Get a player under the age of 25, 26, and hope that they can still give a little bit more. And when it's only 5, 6 mil, it's worth a pop. And he's got experience playing in the league, albeit with, like you say, teams you're not really going to be watching too much of in Portland and Brooklyn. But you give it a go, and he was at LSU, so he was at a big college before that. It's worth a punt, but I don't know if he's going to be the answer at power forward. So is there going to be a Paul George several minutes at that position, maybe, or or Kelly and go smaller there? I don't know. I really don't know what the plan is based on the roster at the moment.
Well, it could be Johnny Broom. It could be our second round pick that has to take up a lot of those minutes, and we will talk about how he's got on in summer league. But I don't think any team look before I say what I'm going to say. I do not think we are contenders, but the front office have to play this offseason like we are going to contend. That they have to. And I don't think any front office who are trying to create a contending team do this. There has to be more, but I just don't see where the more is coming from. Now, where the more could have come from, we will get to in just a moment. But we just want to talk about the rest of those colossal incomings. Obviously, we had Trendon Watford, soon to be followed by Kyle Lowry and Eric Gordon. This I didn't like this. I really don't like this at all. I like the ideas of them more than I like them themselves as players on the court. I love the sort of the fairy tale that could surround Kyle Lowry of Philly born, Philly native, bringing it home for the team. Do I think he brings a certain mentality? Yes. Is he good enough? No. Same with Eric Gordon. It was goose eggs galore for the both of them last season, towards the tail end especially. And we get rid of the likes of Jared Butler and Lonnie Walker, who are younger, far more upside, and are probably better players. When I say probably, they are better players. I know the rationale is, oh well, they've got experience. They good locker room guys. They can be almost quasi coaches as well as players. But I think that's just nonsense. The literal champions of the NBA right now is young, athletic, lengthy players. Short, old, unathletic. This doesn't add up to me.
No, I agree, and I really liked Butler, to be honest with you. Wanted him to get a bit more time, and OKC, like you say, and even a couple of other teams who've had some runs over the last couple of years have got undrafted second round pick players playing as part of rotational minutes there. And the last time that really, I'm trying to think, like last time there was a big vet team that won was probably the Lakers during the lockdown, was probably the last sort of heavy vet team that won. The last few runs and series have been all around the Celtics obviously been dominating, and they've had a very young roster. Most of their players have been under 28 years old. It's just, and then they went a bit older this year with KP and stuff, and then they didn't even do that well. So I think you're right, and I just think now there's too much young talent in the league. I don't think there's a place for these vets. Like you say, I completely agree with the sentiment. Lowry and Gordon, and I get it because Gordon they reckon will be good for VJ. So okay, but Lowry really just have him as a coach. I'd love him as a coach because he seems like he is going to be a coach eventually in the league.
Oh, 100%.
But do we need to pay him? No, probably not as a player.
It feels like a waste of a roster spot. And like I said, when you think people like Butler, Walker, these are people that we've seen repeatedly sort of slip through our fingers and go elsewhere and do very, very well. These young sort of out to prove themselves, undrafted, low second round, and we just let them go. And I can see Butler especially doing very, very well. Because I did think, like you, safe pair of hands. He showed a lot of versatility. So we've certainly dropped the ball on that one, and he was on a very team friendly deal. And when we go back to Eric Gordon here, Eric Gordon's only effective if he's shooting 40% from three. He won't be shooting 40% from three. Kyle Lowry can still play make. I believe he can still pass. Fine, his shot might not be there anymore. His creativity might not be there anymore. But he can still, get a decent box score. Eric Gordon is limited. And this is the VJ thing is also, there's a real dichotomy for me. And I'm sort of like, well, on the one hand, he's from the Bahamas, VJ's from the Bahamas. They know each other. They work well with one another. I think they played with each other at the Olympics or whatever. But also, this idea that you can only work with people who are the same nationality as you is it's a fallacy. It's nonsensical. Fine, he's got a foot in the door because he's had a few games with him once for the Bahamas. Well, that doesn't mean anything. And but I mean by that logic, a team with Buddy Hield and Eric Gordon should walk the league. Both being Bahama players. That doesn't mean anything really. It's one of the things that we say it because it sounds like it's true. But really, I mean, is VJ going to be like, well, I don't know. If Gordon wasn't promised me, I might have just had to look elsewhere. I mean, I don't know. I don't buy it. I'd like to. I'm going to just get my head in the sand and say, yep, great, that'll be really helpful. But how helpful that's going to be will remain to be seen. So I guess our off-season, that is it in terms of incomings and indeed outgoings, if you want to call them that. I mean, it's very, around the edges sort of moves. Our off-season is sort of defined by what didn't happen or what hasn't happened. Most notably, what's going on with Quentin Grimes. Now, he is a restricted free agent, meaning that we can match any offer sheet that anyone puts forward. No one has cap space, meaning that there are a lot of players, not just Quentin Grimes, but you've got Al Horford, you've got Kuminga, who are still shopping themselves around, hoping to find a bigger pay, but there's no market for them. Not because they are bad players, but because there's no one that needs to take him. I mean, like, Brooklyn could maybe offer Kuminga something. I think Brooklyn have a bit of cap space, but you know what Brooklyn are after, and that's basically someone to help them tank, maybe a young guy. So someone like Quentin Grimes doesn't fit the mold. So basically, his options are very limited. So what the Sixers have said is, right, well, we know the rumor was what 25 mil, wasn't it? 25 mil. What you wanted for over three years? Well, you want that. We're not going to give you that. You can, sit and pout about it all you like, but we're not going to give you that. You can wait and see what the market offers you. They're not going to give you that. If they do, we'll match it, but they won't. Then you can come back to us and we'll offer you, I don't know, 18, 20 mil. I think that's probably the best course of action. But this is the Philadelphia 76ers. We are no strangers to stupid things happening in trade season, off seasons, free agency, whatever. So I am thinking, if I'm Quentin Grimes, surely if the Sixers have done this to you, there must be a bit of you that thinks, I'm going to just go elsewhere and maybe take a pay cut because this team has just utterly disrespected me.
I can certainly see that happening because, like I say, if it's going to happen to any team, it's going to be us. So it is frustrating that there's a possibility. But I've been quite open with Quentin Grimes. I think he's an okay player, but I wouldn't want to pay him 25. But I think getting him at 18, 20 is definitely a lot better. So I quite like the idea if it does put off, but I'd have rather just paid the extra and just taken that there, because I know we'll probably get onto this later, but the only thing I can think is going to happen is we're going to go into the season with the power forward position still needing a little bit of depth or potentially the final piece, and we trade away one of the guards because we're going to be so guard heavy because I don't think there's going to be many teams with a better guard depth than us when you've got everyone healthy, and you could move on like Grimes, or I don't know. You don't want to move away VJ because he's new toy. McCain loved last year before his injury, and obviously Maxi's loved, so you don't want to potentially move those away. So, but those four all could be assets to get a power forward. So that's what I'd rather do is go into that season and then find the team that gets an injury, because the most likely thing is that someone like a point guard gets injured, they get desperate because that's the person that's obviously playmaking per se in your team. So I just hope we get it done now, and I would just pay the money. Whereas 6-7 months ago when I was watching him put up 30 points in a pointless game, and I was just like, he's just stat padding. I was completely different, but now it's like, no, let's go into the season with 4 solid guards, and then see what goes on as the time goes on, as we hit December, January.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it reeks of the Jeremy Grant effect. You know, when he was in Detroit, and he was far and away the best player on what was a terrible team. He then gets given a huge payday in Portland, and he's still sitting in Portland because ultimately that is not. It's not untradeable. It's just difficult to get because he's not worth the money he is. He's still a good player, but he's not worth that. And that would be my only concern with Grimes is that, yeah, great. He is a good player. Fine. He's not worth that. But like I said, I feel like with the Sixers putting their foots down and digging their heels in so vehemently, if I'm Quentin Grimes and I had the Sixers offering me 18 million, bearing in mind, look, we're a team that could do something. The East is pretty weak this year. So yeah, I think genuinely our ceiling could be the conference finals this year. I genuinely think if the stars align, we could get that far. But equally, if you told me we don't make the playoffs, even the play in, there is a world in which I could see that happening. So if you're Quentin Grimes and the Sixers have offered you 18 million, they've played you around for fools, they've made you look rather daft. They've not been very appreciative of the fact that you've basically been their saving grace for the last however many games in that last season. Someone then comes around and says, I don't know what the cap situation is like in other teams, so forgive me if I'm spouting a deal that doesn't make sense. If the Orlando Magic just turn around and say, well, maybe we'll just give you a 13 million 1 year, I might just be like, I'll take that. Fine, I'm earning less this year, but I'm on a better team. I'll get to prove myself, and I'll go into next year, next off season, as a free agent, having proved myself on a better team, ready to earn my paycheck. That's
Mm-hmm.
my concern. So I just want this sorted. I really want this sorted. I hope he stays. I really, really do. But I think the longer it persists and prolongs itself, the more we get in our own heads as to just how cataclysmic I guess this could end up being. And then we've got no trade chips going forward for that power forward. Should we wish to chop and change things up, let's say by January.
Mm.
Now, speaking of power forwards, despite the fact that we can't buy any for love nor money, there was one that we had slip through our fingertips. Gershon Yabusele. This hurt tremendously. It really, really hurt. Now, we are by no means financial wizards when it comes to how this all cap works because it's a minefield. But from what I've gathered, if we sorted Grimes early, i.e., had him signed on the dotted line for July 1st, we could have then offered him the MLE, the same MLE New York had offered him. And, me getting it ever so slightly nerdy, New York tax is higher than Pennsylvania tax. So even though theoretically New York is offering you the same as Philly, after tax, we offer him more. So I can understand the annoyance that people could claim we've dropped the ball. However, is there room for a bit of sympathy for the front office here?
I'm going to say no. I think they knew how much he was loved. That was an easy win for them to get the fans that sort of win them over a little bit. When you play computer games and you're a football manager, basketball manager, whatever, and you have the percentage of your fan population as a manager or a chairman or whatever. That would have got you an extra 10% by re-signing Yabusele because he is loved by the fans more so than Grimes. Like some fans do have that gripe with Grimes that he's ball dominant and maybe won't be able to do that with a Maxi and a healthy McCain as well, and in limited minutes off the bench. Whereas Yabusele was like it's a fairly cheap deal and was such a hustle and he had that grind and that grit and that's why New York's a good fit for him as well because very
It's a
similar to
very good
Philadelphia.
fit.
Yeah, the fans demanding the playing style, although would be different now because obviously Tibbs is out, but he would have been a great Tibbs player as well.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to lose a player of that quality for the price that he's gone at. But fair play to him. He came in on that cheap deal, and he got what he needed. And he I think I read somewhere they didn't even get like much conversation from the Sixers. Like there wasn't much interest really. It was kind of like we want to do something, but we've got other priorities first. And then Knicks came in and he took it. So it's frustrating we didn't prioritize him and show him that we actually cared as an
Okay.
organization.
Yeah. and it's to a rival ultimately. It really stings. I think. I just think we had to have our ear to the ground a bit more. You know what's going on in various sectors of the NBA world. You know who's after whom. Um, all you had to do was really pledge to him. Look, once this Grimes deal is over the line, you are next. Whether we did that or not, it's all speculation. But again, we know this organisation. We know we're not ones to really roll out the red carpet and make someone feel loved. And I mean that in the sense of the front office. The fans do their absolute best. We really, really do. You know, it was Yabusele we did our best with. Butler we did our best with. Batum we did our best with. You know, we really try from superstar level right the way up to role player. We really, really do. But the people who need to get it over the line, the people who ultimately matter, don't. So yeah, this one stings a lot. It sort of, again, this is a question I asked you about a different player last season, Tobias Harris. When he comes back with the Knicks, would you boo him?
I don't think I would. I think with Harris, it was around his contract and the production we got from that. With Yabu, it's going to the rival, isn't it? And we never really, from the time I never went to a Celtics game, but watching on TV, Drew never got booed when he was playing for the Celtics. Albeit it was there was a stop in between with Pels and stuff that before he moved after the Sixers. So I'd like to think we'd treat him similar to that. That yeah, you've gone to one of our two main rivals that we dislike in the NBA world, but let's hope that you do okay, but you don't do too well in the games that we play against you. We still finish above you in the seedings and get further than you. You know,
I think that's fair. I still like the guy, and I think his reasons, I mean, are probably fair. And I think, you know, if he turns around and says, "Yeah, the organisation did me over," we'll be the first ones to admit, you know, you do you. And ultimately, and people are going to hate me for saying this, if you're I mean, any NBA fan or player growing up, but if you're a foreign-born one, especially, when the orange and blue of New York come a calling, that's got some draw. That really, really does. It's the same with the Lakers. It's the same with the Celtics. And again, I hate myself for saying this. We don't have that draw. We're not small market, but we're not that. So
no.
we really have to work smarter, and we didn't. So that's another one that slipped through our fingers. I think we're going to really regret that one because I think he's going to do well for him. And if the Knicks do well, that means therefore it's normally at our expense. So yeah, I'm pretty gutted with that one. So Grimes is up in the air. Yabusele's up in the air. The power forward position's up in the air. The best power forward available. It's, I saw someone say this, and I was like, "Oh God, surely not." We got two people. Trey Lyles, fine. The other one's Al Horford. we've got full circle. Al Horford's probably the best power forward left. Would you do it? if he came available on a vet min, would you say yes?
I don't know. I think with everything that's went on with his, you know, his sister was tweeting out at fans. I remember after he left, and when the Celtics beat us the following year. I don't know. That would be. I don't know what the thing is with the front office. This is the frustrating thing. Like, I wouldn't put it past the front office. That's the thing, because they're inconsistent with their messaging, which is the most frustrating part. And you know, this Sixers could have been in that top tier with the teams you just mentioned, but we're a second tier team with like the Chicago's and a couple of other teams, and they've not. They could have entered into the first tier with a great culture and great organisation sort of set up, and they've just not done it. And it's the lack of openness with the fans. When you compare it with the Phillies and the Eagles, you know, and even the Flyers, they're quite open about what they're going to do and how they're going to approach things. And because they don't do that, And I know it's bad to diss a team that we like, especially because we want to be treated nice when we go over. But Harris has even messed up in the Premier League with Palace and their ownership group. So I just think there's just not been a consistent thing. So I could see them doing it, but I think as fans we wouldn't. So I wouldn't put it past the front office to go. We're going to go younger and fitter. Back when the exit interviews happened, to again go and saying, oh well, Lowry's re-signed, Gordon's re-signed, and guess what? We've signed another old player now forfeit. So here's 3 players that are way past their prime that's on your roster, and we promised to get younger.
It would certainly be an interesting few days if that went over the line. And I think what's interesting is you did mention the Palace thing, and I know I think we do get a couple of listeners over stateside. So just to clarify what's happened over here with Crystal Palace, so Josh Harris's Premier League team, they won the FA Cup, which is just a cup competition, but it's very prestigious here in the UK. And that guarantees you entry into a certain European competition whereby you can play other teams from Italy, France, Spain, Germany, whatever. Now, for clubs like Crystal Palace, they're by no means the size of Man United, Liverpool. That's a massive deal. They've never not done that in the modern era. Not the modern era. They've never played in Europe in the what we call the Europa League, just one below the Champions League, where the likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid play. So this one, the first crack of the whip. I know a couple of Palace fans there are absolutely buzzing for this. I'm not sure if you know any, but if you do, I'm sure they would have said exactly the same. Absolutely buzzing. One of the lovely away day and a nice city on the continent, nice coastal area, whatever. Basically, Josh Harris, because of a lack of foresight, has violated a rule, and now they cannot compete in that competition, which was a once in a lifetime opportunity. Palace have never won a trophy. That would enable them to enter such a competition. Never, and they've been in action for 150 years. So that is sports ownership at its absolute worst. Awful, awful, awful. And that man is supposed to lead us.
It's just a shambles. Like bringing in another owner that owns another club, and that's why I just don't trust him with the Sixers, because that was an error that one of my friends who I spoke to about said that apparently they're blaming that the UEFA sent it to a hello@Crystal Palace or something email address, but you're a stakeholder. You should be having board meetings about it with your fellow board members about this is what's going on. You own all these sports franchises across the world, and you've got an investor in who owns a club in front. Like, just know what's going on, and that's why I just don't trust the approach he has. I have, like I say, I never doubt his commitment. We're over the salary cap. He pays the luxury tax. I get where he's coming from that, and he tries to bring in people that are better for the sport. But the problem is, I think sometimes you just need to have a owner that has a little bit more input into the team and a focus on it, like a Laurie's done at the Eagles, and really, and I forgot his name, though, in the Sixers as well. Ex Comcast owner that owned the Flyers. That they're very involved, and I think that's the problem with the Sixers. And I could just see us, like I say, I think not just Moore. I don't think Morey's always the bad person in this, but Morey and Brand. But I think whoever agrees and signs things off, I could just see him doing the complete opposite to what they say.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as well. What's happened, and I think we've mentioned him before. Steve Ballmer with the Clippers. He's a Clippers owner, but first and foremost, he loves the Clippers. He's just a fan with money. He's just like, you know what? You know what's going to be good fun if we get our own arena and we make it so it's going to create good atmosphere and it'll be a fun experience. And you know what? We're going to give you all the tools you'll need to make sure you create a good team. Likewise, Mark Cuban with the Mavericks. I know he's taken a step back since. He was just a fan ultimately, and those are the best owners. Josh Harris isn't a fan. He is an owner. He's seeing this as a profitability thing. I think his collection of sports teams is a status thing. It's not because of course, yeah, he'll say, yeah, I want the Sixers to win, but I think that's more so he can brag about owning the team that's won the NBA title, not because he desperately wants the Sixers to win. If he sells the Sixers tomorrow, I don't think he supports them anymore. If Ballmer sells the Clippers, he's probably still there on the courtside seats. Cuban still goes to Mavericks games. He just doesn't have that level of care. And as a result, this is what happens when you don't care enough. Mistakes are made.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Bulmer. Like he's built a new arena, which I know we're trying to do, but he's put thought and thing into it. He's he's gone after free agents. Obviously, I know you want to touch a little bit on that, so it might lead into it nicely. But he's gone after free agents. He's trying to make the Clippers competitive, and he's involved in that apparently when they are signing these players with the general manager, with the coach. It's a three-way thing. It's not just a general manager and coach who do it's your job. I'll just sign the checks and sit back. He's involved in it, and I think that's the big difference. Because if you need a tie and vote, that's what I remember they always say about the Eagles. Laurie has the tie and vote normally in the thing. If the coach and the GM don't always agree, obviously Roseman's been GM for the last decade now. He's been great with it. If coach doesn't agree with what Laurie has the last say, and I don't think that necessarily happens with us, and I think it happens with too many teams in the NBA that do have it, and that's why they're more successful than us. And there's a clear vision.
Yeah, exactly. It's just thinking on the large scale, not. It's just looking when you look at what Harris does, he looks at it. He just doesn't understand the sport, as far as I'm concerned. He understands business. He must be doing something right to be that rich, but he doesn't understand the sport, and the passion doesn't convey. So you talked about the free agents, and I think that does neatly segue us into it. It was quiet for us, but it seemed that everyone else has done something interesting. And we don't have time to go through every single one. But I've got two teams I would like to talk about. One of them you've already mentioned, the Clippers, and I'll let you take the Clippers in a second. But I wanted to firstly talk about the Houston Rockets.
Yes.
Wow. Obviously, they hit the home run firstly with the KD trade, where they got they gave up KD for essentially Dylan Brooks. It's like, wow, that's some move. And a couple picks. And then they get Dorian Finney-Smith, and they keep Jabari Smith, and they keep Armin Thompson. They extend Fred VanVleet. They got Şengün. They got Steven Adams. Clint Capella as well. I mean, look, I'm not saying, they got Clint Capella, they're going all the way. But that is serious amount of depth and length as well. I mean, if again we go back through that, Şengün 6'11", Jabari Smith Jr. 6'10", KD is 6'10", Dorian Finney-Smith 6'6", 6'7". I mean, then you go on to Fred VanVleet, who fine, yeah, he is small, but that is a very good team. I mean, Houston. I mean, OKC are going to be good. I mean, of course they are. Denver are going to be good, of course they are. But I like Houston a lot for next season. They're going to go quite far for me.
I fully agree. I saw them last year when they had the younger lads, and they looked very promising. And I generally don't think that I generally think if they were in the East, they would be potentially favourites. Like I say, the West is it's so heavy, the West this year. I think last couple of years the East started to build back up and was as strong as the West in my opinion. But this year it's a massive shift towards the West, and the Rockets have got a solid, like you say, solid roster. And when you don't give up a lot for a superstar, albeit he's probably only got a couple of years max left at his ability level, if they win a chip in that time or make a conference finals in that time or two conference finals, they'll be happy, semi-happy with that trade.
Yeah, I think they've been brilliant. And then this was very early on today, and this was news for you when we came on. CP3 is going back to the Clippers, Lob City Clippers. Obviously, there's no DJ, there's no Blake, but that's cool to see him return, and the old boys are getting themselves back together down in LA.
Yeah, I think when you got nice weather as well, it's probably helpful on the body, right? So you're not going to feel too bad if they can get 60 games or so or close to that with Harden, Kawhi, Paul off the bench, Bradley Beal.
Brooke Lopez. They got Brooke
Yeah,
Lopez as well, didn't they?
yeah, and that's a big vet.
Mm.
And they've got shooters. they're a scary team. And
Mm.
I said about our guard depth, but they've definitely got great. Bogdan as well. They've got great depth there.
Chris Dunn's one of the best defensive guards. I mean, fine, he's limited on the offensive side, but he'll lock up just about anyone. And I
Yeah,
guess if you got Bradley Beal and James Harden and Chris Paul and Bogdanovich, you don't really need Chris Dunn to be scoring. You just need him to defend people.
exactly. And then I mean, Patty Mill's still there. I think you've got obviously our boy. I say our boy. I know he's only with us for like a year, but Batum's obviously. I think he's still there.
Yeah,
I like Zubac. I
he's
like.
very good, very underrated center.
Yeah. I just think probably him and Lopez aren't necessarily like now. Lopez is a bit older. Aren't you wouldn't say probably top 10 centers, but you could definitely argue that they're top. 25, 30 potentially in that range. So given them, they don't have to be top 10 centers because they've got that vast amount of guard and small forward type ability players there. They are a scary team if they can get healthy. It's just that they have got like late 30s, mid 30s, and early 30s
Yeah.
players. There's not many players under the age of 30 in
Mm.
that team.
What I like a lot about what they've done as well is Zubac's great in the pick and roll, great defender. More mobile, obviously, than Lopez. Obviously, he can't play every minute. Sometimes it might not be working out in the matchup. Okay, so we bring on Brook. He can stretch the floor. I do think he's overrated in terms of shooting his threes, but he can shoot the threes. And that gives them a whole different sort of dynamic in how they're going to guard the five and guard the paint. And even then, they got Derek Jones Jr., who on the wing, athletic, bit ropey with his shot. But I think, if the matchups is right, he can go at the five as well. So they just got all these options that they can throw at you, and they're quite distinct. You can go from, right, Chris Paul's going to run this offense. Now James Harden's going to run this offense. Now Kawhi's going to run this offense. Now, by the way, Bradley Beal's going to go for a bit of a moment and going to try and get up 20 quick points. I don't know. It's there's so much they can throw at you, and it is all very, very different. So, do I think they're going to go all the way? It's again predicated on injuries, i.e., is Kawhi going to be good to go? They're gonna go deep, and they're gonna be interesting and fun to watch at the very least.
Yeah, 100%. And if Ben Simmons' workout videos actually mean something this year, then that's another solid piece for them. But we'll know that probably won't turn to anything.
He,
Oh, no,
he,
no, no, like it probably will now.
he might join Dwight Howard in Taiwan. Um, I don't know what's going on with that guy. So there are some people that say, "Oh, maybe we should get him back and play him at the 4." I don't want to touch that one with a 10-foot barge pole. He's made his
No.
bed; he can lie on it. He'll probably end up somewhere in the NBA, but it won't be with us. Obviously, Damian Lillard has made his way to Portland. He won't play this season by the sound of things, but he will go there. And it's interesting because if he was fit, Portland would have Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday, which is one of the best backcourts on paper, I think. And then they would have Jeremy Grant as well. That's actually a pretty interesting team if
Mm-hmm.
and the big if everyone was fit. So I'm actually a bit slightly disappointed he is injured, and I hope he gets back quick. But I would really love to see how that would just format. I'm sure it would probably just fail, just given the nature of it. But very interesting. Of course, they got Yang Hansen as well, the big five, who
Oh, yeah,
who's
yeah.
become a bit of the cult hero of the NBA. The sort of Jokic part 2 from China. So yeah, there's some interesting talent there, and then you got the Timberwolves. They're still Timberwolving. Nothing much has changed too drastically. They gave Julius Randle a contract. I don't care how good his playoffs is. I don't trust the bloke. Perhaps this is an agenda-driven thing, but I mean, I don't know. Do you?
Um, I don't. No, I think he peaked at the Knicks very well,
Hmm.
and I think the Knicks knew that, and that's why he was moved on. Even though I thought it was mad at the time when they moved him and got Cat in and stuff, but yeah, I think I think that they moved on for a reason from him. Otherwise, he would have stayed, because even though Tibbs, you can moan about him as a player, but I think as a fan, you appreciate Tibbs has got the talent, knows work rate and ethic, and I don't think Randall's always got that and got the right mentality at times to do it. But if he's there and mentally there, but I don't think he is every time, he is a good player and you can trust him. But I don't think he's a 7-game guy you can trust.
Yeah, he's a I mean, that's it. It was probably a sensible move, but I don't really rate it. Really, Denver got Bruce Brown back, which I think was a really, really cool move. Obviously, they traded away Michael Porter Jr., got Cam Johnson. Again, really good move. I liked that a lot. So Denver, I think, are going to be right up there. LA are just going to, who knows? I mean, do you have a take with the Lakers? I don't. That's just like they could. If you told me they're coming out of the West, I would have been like, okay, fine. But if you tell me they're not getting the playoffs, I'm also like, yeah, cool, fine.
I think with the Lakers, and I always joke around this with my Lakers friends, but LeBron's still the GM. Wherever he goes, he gets his boys in, people that he thinks he can trust, and it doesn't always pay off, and it hasn't necessarily pulled off straight away so far. I mean, there's rumours about them trading young players again. It's just, I don't know. It'll be interesting off season to see what goes on with the sort of, because they've got flipped up the roster. It's just, I just don't know. I don't know. Luka and LeBron obviously going to dominate the ball, so it's interesting. And when's LeBron going to lose his thing? Father Time eventually wins.
Yeah. Do you know who now has a no trade clause on the Lakers?
No.
Jackson Hayes has a no trade clause. It's just a weird fact for you. I didn't realize this. If you get given 3 1-year contracts in a row by the same team, it automatically qualifies you for a no trade clause. So
I did not know that.
when LeBron looks to trade inevitably in January, and you see Jackson Hayes sitting on a nice $1 or $2 million a year, like, nah, you can't send me to New Orleans, mate. I'm staying put. So Jackson Hayes, of all people, has the Los Angeles Lakers by the scruff of the neck when it comes to trade negotiations, because is this a contract you just want to chuck in to make money work? It's an expendable piece, and he holds all the cards.
That is, that's strange, that. But maybe that's why there's rumours about Connect being traded. Then there's rumours about that. Maybe they're trying to move around that. So again, I think Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Doncic are the only 3, and Bronny, for obviously because it's of his dad, are the 4 officially untradeable assets on the roster. Everyone else, I think, is up for grabs.
So quickly, I mean, I'll head out east because one other team I forgot to mention that I'm actually, again, really excited to talk about. The East, on the whole, is pretty dead this year. I know everyone's talking about Atlanta, and they've made some interesting moves that are kind of exciting. Trae Young and Porzingis, they could pick and roll on the halfway line, and that would be an effective offensive move given both of theirs range. But it doesn't move the needle enough. For me, I think people are really overestimating Atlanta. They're a secure playoff team now, but they're not the Titans that people are making them out to be. However, who I do think is really going to pull up a lot of what's the word? I guess pull up a lot of trees this upcoming season. It's not Cleveland. I think Cleveland again will just, until they change fundamentally who they are, they're just a regular season team. It's Orlando. They've been that move, the move that they've been doing, have been fantastic. Starting 5: Jalen Suggs, Desmond Bain, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and then Wendell Carter Jr., who's fine. They've got movement to make as well. They could go and maybe trade for Vucevic, bring him back, and he could be the starting 5. You're a big Banchero guy, aren't you? So you must think the Magic have got a good chance here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love him. He's one of the you always have a player I think, that you like that isn't on your roster,
Yeah,
and you always go, I would like to see him do well. I'd love for us to pick him up and stuff. And even though he's that typical one and done college player, at one of the big schools, anyone from Duke and stuff like that, you don't always want to root for. But he just got a likable character, and I think I just liked what the Magic did, and I think they've got potentially the not the OKC of the East per se, but they were at a point with some of the young players they've got, and they've still got so much, like you say, room to move around and stuff like that. People would take some of their young players. Um, yeah, I would fully back them to have a good season again, and potentially move up a couple of slots in the playoffs, and maybe be a conference finalist from the East. I wouldn't be surprised if you told me that today.
mm. I do think they again they're going to go deep, second round at the very least. So I hope they do well. New York is still going to be good. Hope they don't do well. Pacers just got unlucky. Milwaukee are scraping the bottom of the barrel to keep relevant.
Hmm.
They are obviously trying their best to appease Giannis and to keep him here. The stretch and trade, the stretch and wave thing of Lillard was odd. Miles Turner on such a big deal was odd. Is Miles Turner's good, but does he move the needle that much? No. Because if you think about it, Giannis is the best player. Who's the second best player on Milwaukee's team? Turner, Kuzma. That doesn't win you a championship. So I don't know what they're doing. I think they're kicking the can. They've got no picks for the future. They are just trying their utmost to be like, please stay. Look at what we've got. I mean, it's not much, but they'll just pretend otherwise. So we've got two more talking points, and we've talked a fair bit already. It's flown by. Summer League.
Yeah.
I was really excited for Summer League, and then it just wasn't. I didn't get anything really from it, and it's not through the fault of any players necessarily. But I don't know. I didn't get a really good feel for what I needed to get out of it. I needed to see a lot of VJ. I didn't. Johnny Broom, fine, yeah, cool. I
Mhm.
thought he showed a lot of good stuff. And then there were loads of games where like people who are never, ever, 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 ever going to get any seconds for the Sixers got all the game time, and I'm like, well, what's the point of me watching this? Was there anything you got from it?
Not no. I'm the same as you. I was just like, there's some Delaware players here. Great, well done. We're building out our Delaware roster, and I get that's what some leagues for. To give those guys the G League chance and to become potentially a rotational player or a two-way player in the future for us. Justin Edwards had a couple of right games when he played. VJ looked good when he did play, but not enough sample size. Broom did okay, like you say. Yeah, I just thought there's just who's going to be actually on this roster. When you draft players, you want to see them play, and I think the good thing is a lot of the games were late, so we didn't plan to watch them anyway. But the only one great point was he was good and he did lock down at times and did very well against Ace Bailey. It's only one
Yeah.
game. Obviously, that gives you a little bit of a boost of actually the Sixers made the right decision there potentially. So hopefully they did, and I was wrong. And I hold my hands up if it worked out.
Yeah. I mean, like that Ace game was fun, just because it was clear VJ was far and away ahead of him. I know Ace did then go on and have a decent game in a different one, so we do have to mention that. But for the agenda, VJ looks better.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, Broom. I think what I liked about what I saw from Broom was the playmaking. He could move with the ball. He wasn't just your static 4-5 that he can't really do anything but stick in the paint. So I quite liked how he had that playmaking ability, and his shot wasn't terrible. Not filled with too much confidence, but it wasn't terrible.
Hmm.
But ultimately, despite the playmaking, how many plays is he really going to run in an NBA game when you've got Maxey, McCain, George, Grimes, Embiid, even Kelly Oubre, like Lowry? He's not going to be able to run too many, but you got to start somewhere, and there's a player. There is a player there. So I think a lot of us were quite overly critical of the Broom pickup because I believe there was someone earlier in the first round, the second round. I can't remember his name that would fit the bill perfectly. We didn't get him. So people have been a bit critical of him, but I think he's had a good summer league. But he's not really changed, set the world alight. So the jury is still out. Yeah, Justin Edwards started slow, alarmingly slow, and then he's got to a point. He's like, yeah, he's better than everyone. Great, he's still good. Yeah, that's something I could have told you afterwards. And then the final point I wanted to come to you with, because again, we're nearing an hour, so we want to be able to shoot off relatively soon. But what also took an hour was reading that article on Joel Embiid. So we discussed this briefly before coming on, because I said I bit the bullet and I just read it before, earlier today, just because I needed to. It would be daft not to. It was, for me, it didn't really reveal anything. Rather self-indulgent in terms of it was the writer trying to come up with some sort of uh, descriptive narration of Embiid's life, working through metaphor, and I don't know what it was. It didn't feel like a piece of sports journalism. It felt like a reworked piece of fiction. It just felt odd tonally, but interesting points were made. Is there anything that stood out for you?
I think for me, like, there was a bit around the Harden, him not talking to Harden and stuff, that I weren't sure on how their relationship ended, so that was there. But like you say, most of it, if you're a Sixers fan and an Embiid fan, you knew what was going on. I think it shows about his mental health and stuff when he says about his brother. But it just felt, like you said, it felt weird. It felt like it was trying not to look like a PR exercise, but was. That's kind of
Yeah,
how
yeah.
I was reading it. Like you say, it was trying to get creative and try and make it sound like I've had a proper sit down with him, and it's been a full on open his heart out. But it's kind of been like he probably did, but it's probably been the narrative's been probably set by whoever. It's probably preset questions, not a full on Q&A type. It was a weird article. I read in patches stuff and things like that, and yeah, it was interesting. But I don't know if we, like you say, we learned too much as Sixers and Embiid fans. Outside of it, might do because we've had to defend him, and I think that's what the piece was aimed at, was people that maybe didn't know him and know about some of his sort of
Mhm.
mentality, lack of Olympic sort of like I wanted some. There wasn't really a why did you go Olympics? Why didn't you rest? Type, and then a definitive answer around that. It was all wishy washy.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like you said, it confirmed what we knew. It confirmed that, yeah, a lot of it is a bit of a front. Things could have been better in previous years. The organisation has let him down on occasions. There's been a lack of transparency. It's not really his fault. There are misconceptions about the bloke. Some of it is self-induced. Some of it has been prolonged stereotype. Um, and that has managed to manifest itself in a 70,000 word essay. I think, like you said, this wasn't for Sixers fans. This was almost for the people who have a violent and unnecessary hatred of the bloke. That, hang on, before you keep telling us how much you hate him for X, Y, and Z, just remember that this bloke's knee is in absolute tatters, as per, I'm paraphrasing off of what Nick Batum revealed during one of the playoff series, that this guy's knee was just, I don't know how he played on it, he was playing for absolute agony. He's gone through the absolute ringer, mentally and physically, for this team. He's had to pick himself up after the loss of his brother, for which he blames himself for, um, all the while being criticised for being lazy. for perhaps not being able to face certain games head on because of injury or mental fatigue, which I guess lends itself to a wider sort of commentary on the commodification of athletes. That you don't just wind them up and go. They have families, they have mums, dads, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, and they have emotions. That's why sometimes they'll play good. So that's why sometimes they'll play bad, because things happen and we forget that. So there was some good to come out of this, but for people like me and you, I would say the sane people that keep ourselves in the know, hasn't revealed anything we didn't know already. Embiid is done so much for this city, and even if he doesn't pick up a ring, he should be held in the same esteem as Iverson and as Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dr. J and Malone might just have to be in a different echelon given what they achieved. But he's certainly on the Mount Rushmore, so it's. I think it didn't really tell us an awful lot ultimately, but just put respect on his name. I think that's the main thing here.
Yeah, I fully agree. Especially about the Mount Rushmore bit as well, and obviously the article. I think you've got to look at it and go, he has tried to play through injury and through mental toughness, and like you say, you forget they're human at times because they earn all that money. And I'm to blame sometimes when I've criticised him or any athlete really.
Yeah, absolutely, me too. Yeah.
But you kind of think, well, they've got all that money, so they should be able to get the best therapists, they should be able to get the best sports scientists, and they should be able to look after their bodies better. Because obviously there was rumours about the Shirley Temples with him, and I think he did admit that in the article, but obviously people saw him out and about and stuff, so knew that he was like that, and But yeah, we didn't learn too much, but it was interesting to have that article out, and like you say, I think it's there so that he is aimed at other people. Maybe he'll get less sort of hate and booze at other arenas, but I can't imagine it. He'll still get it in New York and Boston, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's just it required, just so long as people would start to humanize not just him, but it's also for the future players as well, because these sorts of issues won't just go away; they will happen again and again. What happened after this, which was thought provoking, a thought provoking, in depth reflection on your own conduct when criticizing NBA players. What then immediately comes out is Paul George has knee surgery, and you just you can't on the one hand say let's go easy on Joel, because then you almost immediately want to launch yourself at PG. In the chat, in our chat we have, I was saying, how does this even happen when you're not playing basketball and you need knee surgery? And then someone said they saw him at Summer League and he was fine, and a week later he needs knee surgery. What do you even do to yourself?
I don't know. It wasn't bowling, so it's not Andrew Bynum scenario, but I have no idea how to think about Paul. I just hope he was maybe trying to do something to better his body for the following season, but I mean, I remember when he played for the Pacers and that horrible injury happened, and he's managed to make a great career out of it. So I do think that he's due a lot of respect, but I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. It's just typical Sixers. You start
Yeah.
one of your star players. He said he's going to have a redemption season, comeback season, and then there's a chance that he might even miss the start of the season or not be 100% for the start of the season. So then he's going to play his way in, like Embiid's going to. So then you've got two players playing their way in, so they're not actually going to be fit until November.
Oh, it's just joyous, isn't it? I read it should be about 1 to 2 months. But even then, like you said, there's 1 to 2 months, fine, you're back on the basketball court. But what about full scrimmage and pre-season? And it was just more unnecessary anguish. But yeah, hopefully it's not too bad. But I think for me, the big frustration about this was there was a time this summer, this off season, as it were. I was optimistic. I was like, oh, you know what? Embiid's going to come back, and Paul George is going to come back, and we'll get Grimes eventually, probably, hopefully, touch wood. And we've got some players, and we might make a trade later further down the line. And why not? Why can't we get fifth seed, fourth seed, maybe even a third seed? Who knows? And now I'm just sort of like, oh, here we go again. And this is the problem: is that organizational level thing we talked about earlier. How how do you feel about this? Because we've just been here before, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I need. Yeah, I mean, right now I'm not in the best of sort of analysing moods for the season because, like you say, you just have bad news, and Embiid's article reminds you that how he's probably not got much left in him as a player, which is, you understand with the injuries. So it's kind of like right now it's all a bit negative. But I'm hoping by the start of the season, if Paul George is scrimmaging, Embiid scrimmaging, then I might go into season going, yeah, okay, I think we could have a good chance because, like I said, the East is weak, and then at some point we make a trade for a more legit power forward. But as of right now, I'm too scared to criticise and get myself feeling down when I should be looking forward to, because it's a part of the year when you're meant to be happy with all your sports team because it's just baseball being played at the moment. And unfortunately, the Phillies aren't doing great, but like American football, Premier League, basketball, it's all their off season. It's the build up. Everyone should be looking forward to a new promising season. And the Sixers aren't giving us that.
No, no, they are not. But there is always cricket in the rugby that we're doing okay in. So
This is true.
that is always something if you're that way inclined. But we've taken up enough of the time. It's a really great discussion. I enjoyed talking through that because obviously it's been a long time coming. I reckon next time around we'll have a proper chat about predictions. Our not too early predictions, because I think we've already flirted with a couple teams there, talking about who we like, who we dislike. So let's have a proper chat about that. Maybe, hopefully, as well, we can have a chat about maybe a few other signings. But that'd be a really good one to sink our teeth into. Who's gonna take the MVP? Who's gonna take the title? Are the OKC Thunder gonna repeat? Who's coming out the West? Who's coming out the East? Who's gonna be our shock teams? Rookies to watch out for, etc. So I reckon that'll probably be the next way forward. Because let's be honest, the Sixers, it seems all quiet. Really, we've covered all bases in the hour we've had here, and I don't see much news coming out of there over the next few days, weeks, really.
Unfortunately, not. But hopefully, Grimes will be signed before the end of July.
Yeah, we'll just have to see on that one, won't we? But anyway, so Sam, where can we find you?
Sam Oakley, UK Sixers fan on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and also in the PSI group, which the podcast is part of, and you're part of. Where can we find you, Ben?
So at UK76ers on Instagram and on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Of course, we are part of PSI International, where you can join for £10 for the year. That gets you access to our giveaways. We've already given away jerseys for the Phillies, for the Sixers. I had to give away a lovely Jared McCain jersey just the other week. Absolutely beautiful piece of kit, as well as some. I think it was a flashy little Iverson hollow card as well, which I was struggling to give away, but I did give it away nonetheless. So you can get your hands on all those goodies and so much more. Of course, access to our chats. Some of the news breaking there is actually really handy, I find, because I just go to the chat, right, that's what's happened. I don't have to worry about scrolling through Twitter in the hope that something might have happened, because more often than not, Ben or Sam or someone like that has already got it for us and ready to go. So really great group as well. We are extremely lucky. We do want to do some watch parties in September onwards, well, October onwards when the season starts, of course. And of course, as well, there are some watch parties for over the summer for the Phillies if you are down in London. And I do also believe there will be some around the country as well if you find yourself up north or out towards Cardiff, and South Wales. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, please do come check us out. It's a really friendly group. We'd love to have you join the community that is at PSI, so Philly Sports International. So that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye bye now.